Captain Jake Morrison stared at the stars through the bridge window of his ship New Horizon. The year was 2387 and humanity had been fighting in the Nexus War for 3 long years. Earth never wanted this war, but the enemy had attacked their colonies first. The Void Collective was a nightmare that consumed entire star systems and left nothing behind. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and checked the patrol road again. His ship was small compared to the massive alien vessels he had seen, but it was fast and reliable. The crew of 40 humans worked well together, even though they all knew they were outmatched by both sides in this galactic war. Earth had only achieved faster than light travel 50 years ago, while the other species had been exploring space for thousands of years. The bridge communication system crackled to life, and Lieutenant Ben Carter spoke from his station. "Captain, we have a distress signal coming from Sector 7 near Europa." Jake turned to look at his communications officer, who was frowning at his display. "It looks like a Nexus ship, sir, but the signal is weak and breaking up." Jake knew Earth Command had strict orders about contact with alien vessels. Humans were supposed to avoid getting involved in fights between the Nexus species and the Void, unless Earth colonies were directly threatened. But something about the desperate tone in that distress call made him hesitate. What kind of ship, Ben, and how badly damaged? "Looks like a Valdorian cruiser, Captain, based on the energy signature. The hull is breached in multiple places, and they are losing atmosphere fast." Ben adjusted his controls, and the signal became clearer. Strange musical tones filled the bridge as the crystalline aliens tried to communicate their emergency. "Lieutenant." Sarah Brooks at the navigation station looked up from her charts. "Captain, if we respond to that distress call, we will be in direct violation of standing orders." Admiral Carter was very clear about avoiding unnecessary contact with Nexus forces. Her voice carried concern, but Jake could see she wanted to help. The aliens too. Jake made his decision quickly. "Set course for the Valdorian ship, maximum speed." "I know the orders, but I cannot let sentient beings die when we can help them." The crew moved with practiced efficiency as New Horizon changed direction and accelerated toward the damaged alien vessel. 20 minutes later, they found the Valdorian cruiser drifting helplessly in space. The ship was beautiful even while damaged, with crystal formations growing along its hull that sparkled in the starlight. Large holes had been torn in the side by some terrible weapon, and Jake could see debris floating around the wreck. "Captain, I am reading 37 life signs aboard that ship," reported Dr. Helen Martinez from her medical station. "Some of them are very weak and fading fast. The Valdorians breathe a different atmosphere than us, but I can modify our shuttle bay to accommodate them." Jake nodded and turned to his tactical officer, Lieutenant Tony Garcia. "Tony, prepare shuttle. A2 for alien survivors and get a rescue team ready. Make sure they have environment suits and medical equipment." Tony saluted and left the bridge to organize the rescue operation. The rescue took 4 hours of careful work. The Valdorian survivors were unlike anything the humans had seen before. They looked like living crystal sculptures that moved with grace and spoke in musical tones. Their leader introduced herself as Commander Zara Prime, and she seemed surprised that humans had risked their lives to save aliens. Through careful translation, using the ship computer, Jake learned that the Valdorians had been attacked by 3 Void bioships while on a reconnaissance mission. The enemy had used some new weapon that could drain energy directly from their systems, leaving them helpless. Zara Prime explained that the Void was adapting faster than anyone had expected, and traditional Nexus weapons were becoming less effective with each battle. 2 weeks later, Jake found himself in a meeting room on Earth facing Admiral Lisa Carter and several other high-ranking officers. Zara Prime stood beside him, still recovering from her injuries, but insisting on attending the meeting. The alien commander had requested formal diplomatic contact with Earth government after the rescue, and now both species were trying to figure out what came next. "Commander Zara Prime has brought an interesting proposal," Admiral Carter said, looking uncomfortable. "The Nexus Council is willing to offer Earth full membership in their alliance if we agree to contribute forces to the war against the Void." She paused and studied the reports on her desk. "They are desperate, Captain Morrison, because they are losing badly?" Jake listened as the Admiral explained how the Void had consumed 3-star systems in the past month. The enemy seemed able to adapt to any energy weapon the Nexus used, and their bioships were getting larger and more aggressive. Traditional space warfare tactics were failing against an enemy that could evolve during battle. Zara Prime spoke in. Her musical voice and the translator converted her words to English. Your species may seem primitive to some in the Nexus, but you have something we have forgotten. You have the courage to risk everything for strangers and the wisdom to make hard choices quickly. Perhaps fresh ideas are exactly what this war needs. The meeting ended with no firm decisions, but Jake knew everything had changed. Earth was being invited to join a galactic war as equals, not subjects, and that invitation would transform humanity forever. 3 months after Earth joined the Nexus Alliance, the war came to human space with devastating fury. The colony world New Haven, with its 2 million settlers, became the target of a massive void assault that appeared without warning. Captain Jake Morrison led a mixed fleet of human and alien ships in a desperate defense, but they were badly outnumbered. The battle began at dawn on New Haven when sensors detected 50 void bioships dropping out of hyperspace. These creatures looked like twisted combinations of starfish and jellyfish, but were each the size of a city. Their dark purple flesh pulsed with veins of sickly green light, and they moved through space like living nightmares seeking prey. Jake watched from his command chair as Nexus energy weapons struck the laid bioship with enough power to destroy a moon. The plasma beams and particle cannons lit up space with brilliant flashes, but the creature barely slowed down. Where the energy hit its flesh, the wounds closed within minutes as the void organism adapted to the weapons being used against it. Human ships focus fire on target Alpha, Jake ordered over the communication system. The 5 Earth vessels opened fire with their kinetic weapons, sending streams of metal projectiles at the bioship. The old-fashioned bullets and missiles seemed pathetic compared to the alien energy beams, but they punched holes in the creature that stayed open and leaked fluid into space. Commander Zara Prime contacted Jake from her crystal ship with concern in her musical voice. Captain Morrison, your weapons appear more effective than ours, but we do not understand why. Our sensors show simple metal projectiles, but they damage the void creatures in ways our advanced energy systems cannot. The battle raged for 12 hours as more void bioships arrived through dimensional portals. Human and Nexus ships fought side by side, but the enemy numbers kept growing. Jake watched in horror as colony evacuation ships tried to escape the planet's surface while being hunted by smaller void creatures that moved like flying snakes. On the planet's surface, Sergeant Amy Rodriguez led her squad of Marines in a fighting retreat through New Haven City. The void had landed thousands of smaller creatures that looked like spider crabs made of black metal. These ground forces consumed everything in their path, turning buildings and people into more biomass for the collective. Amy's squad carried standard human weapons, including assault rifles, grenade launchers, and explosive charges. When Nexus ground forces had tried to help with their energy weapons, the void creatures adapted quickly and became immune to the alien technology. But the human bullets kept working no matter how long the fighting continued. Sergeant, the evac ships need 10 more minutes to clear the spaceport, radioed Lieutenant Kevin Brooks from his position on a rooftop. Can your squad hold the main street that long? Amy looked at her remaining 8 Marines and checked their ammunition supplies. They had been fighting for 6 hours and everyone was running low on bullets. We will hold Kevin, but send any spare ammo you can find, Amy replied as she reloaded her rifle. The void creatures were massing for another attack, and she could see hundreds of the spider things moving through the ruins toward their position. Her squad had discovered something important during the fighting, but there was no time to report it properly. Dr. Nathan Brooks worked frantically in his laboratory on Earth, analyzing tissue samples from the void creatures. The xenobiologist had been studying the enemy for months, trying to understand how they adapted so quickly to different weapons. His latest findings were disturbing and might change everything about how the war was being fought. The void organisms contained specialized organs that could analyze energy patterns and develop countermeasures through rapid genetic modification. When hit by plasma or particle beams, these organs would create new proteins and cellular structures to resist the same attack. But the samples from New Haven showed something different. Kinetic damage from bullets and explosives seemed to bypass these adaptive organs entirely. The void creatures treated physical impacts as environmental hazards, rather than weapons, so their adaptation systems never activated. It was like the difference between getting sick from a virus and being hit by a falling rock. Back in space, the battle was turning desperate. Half the human fleet was destroyed or crippled, and Nexus losses were even worse. The alien ships, with their advanced energy shields and weapons, seemed helpless against enemies that could adapt to their technology in real time. Only the human vessels were still causing significant damage to the Void Biodash ships. Jake made the hardest decision of his military career and ordered all remaining ships to retreat. New Haven was lost, and continuing the fight would only waste more lives. As the surviving ships jumped to hyperspace, he could see the planet's surface glowing with fires as the void consumed everything they had failed to protect. The evacuation had saved 800,000 people, but over 1 million colonists were lost to the void biomass. It was the worst defeat in human history, and many leaders on Earth wanted to withdraw from the Alliance immediately. General Rick Palmer argued that humanity lacked the technology to fight such an advanced enemy, but Dr. Brooks had discovered something in the battle recordings that changed everything. Sergeant Rodriguez and her Marines had held their position for 6 hours against void creatures that had easily defeated Nexus forces equipped with energy weapons. The human projectile weapons worked consistently while alien technology failed. Repeatedly. The key is not the sophistication of the weapon, but its fundamental nature, Dr. Brooks explained to the Emergency Council meeting on Earth. Energy-based attacks trigger the void adaptation response, but kinetic weapons are treated as natural hazards. Their evolution system cannot counter simple physics. Admiral Carter studied the data from New Haven with growing understanding. The battle had been a disaster, but it revealed humanity's secret advantage. While Nexus species had developed incredible energy weapons over thousands of years, they had abandoned primitive kinetic systems. Humans still used bullets, missiles, and explosives because that was all they could afford. Commander Zara Prime attended the meeting via hologram, and her crystalline form shimmered with what might have been excitement. If Dr. Brooks is correct, then your species possesses the one weapon type that can defeat the void consistently. We must test this theory immediately before the enemy adapts their strategy as well. The meeting ended with Earth Command authorizing massive expansion of kinetic weapon production. Factories that had been building energy shields and plasma cannons were converted to manufacture old-fashioned bullets, missiles, and artillery shells. It seemed like humanity was taking a step backward technologically, but it might be the key to winning an impossible war. 6 months after the disaster at New Haven, the war reached another critical point. The Void had launched a massive attack on the Kepler 442 system, which contained the primary manufacturing centers for the entire Nexus Alliance. If those factories fell, the alien coalition would lose their ability to build new ships, and the war would be over. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the command center on Earth watching real-time reports from the battle zone. 3 Nexus fleets had already been destroyed trying to stop the Void advance, and conventional tactics were failing completely. The enemy bioships grew larger and more aggressive with each victory, as if they were learning from every encounter. Captain Jake Morrison prepared his experimental fleet for Operation Steel Rain, the first large-scale test of human kinetic weapons in space combat. His task force included 6 human vessels equipped with upgraded railguns and missile systems, plus 6 Nexus cruisers that had been retrofitted with human-designed projectile weapons. The modifications had not been easy. Nexus engineers struggled to understand why humans wanted to mount primitive kinetic systems on their advanced ships. Commander Zara Prime had spent weeks convincing her own people that bullets and missiles might succeed where plasma cannons had failed. Many alien commanders still believe the theory was wrong. Dr. Nathan Brooks monitored the operation from his research ship, Endeavour, which followed the fleet at a safe distance. His laboratory contained the most advanced sensors available for studying void biology and adaptation mechanisms. If the kinetic weapon theory was correct, this battle would prove it beyond doubt. The target was a void bioship larger than any creature previously encountered. The monster had consumed most of an industrial planet and grown to the size of Manhattan. Its massive bulk pulsed with organic machinery that produced smaller void creatures like a living factory. Destroying it would cripple the enemy offensive. In this sector, Jake studied the tactical display as his fleet approached the target. The bioship was protected by dozens of smaller creatures that moved through space like a school of deadly fish. Previous Nexus attacks had proven that these escorts would adapt to energy weapons within minutes, making conventional assault impossible. "All ships prepare for kinetic bombardment," Jake announced over the fleet communication system. "Remember, this creature has never faced projectile weapons before, so we might have the element of surprise. Target the main body and keep firing until it stops moving." The battle began exactly as predicted. The Nexus ships opened fire, first using their energy weapons to establish baseline behavior patterns. Plasma beams and particle cannons struck the bioship, causing shallow wounds that healed within seconds. The creature's adaptive systems analyzed the energy signatures and began developing countermeasures. Lieutenant Ben Carter reported from his tactical station aboard New Horizon. "Captain, the target is showing classic void adaptation behavior. Energy weapons are becoming less effective with each hit, and some areas of the hull are now completely immune to plasma fire." Jake waited until the void creature had fully adapted to energy weapons before ordering the kinetic assault. "All ships commence steel rain bombardment. Fire everything we have at the target and do not stop until ordered." The human-designed weapon spoke with a different voice than alien technology. Railgun rounds traveling at significant fractions of light speed punched through the bioship armor like paper. The creature's adaptive systems had no defense against simple kinetic energy, and each impact caused massive internal damage. Conventional missiles loaded with chemical explosives detonated inside the organism, creating wounds that could not heal quickly. Dr. Brooks watched his instruments with growing excitement as the battle data confirmed his theory. The void adaptation. "Organs are not responding to kinetic attacks at all," he reported to Admiral Carter via secure communication link. "The creature is treating physical impacts as natural hazards rather than weapon strikes." The bioship tried to retreat, but human weapons continued tearing it apart. Chunks of alien flesh the size of buildings broke away from the main body as railgun rounds found vital organs. The smaller escort creatures attempted to shield their parent, but they were equally vulnerable to projectile weapons. Lieutenant Sarah Brooks at the navigation station tracked the creature's death throes. "Captain, the target is losing structural integrity. Internal explosions are spreading throughout the organism, and it appears to be dissolving from the inside out." The massive bioship that had consumed an entire planet was dying from wounds inflicted by primitive human weapons. The victory at Kepler 442 sent shockwaves through both the Nexus Alliance and the Void Collective. For the first time in 3 years, a major void bioship had been completely destroyed in direct combat. The creature that had shrugged off the most advanced energy weapons in the galaxy was killed by bullets and missiles. Commander Zara Prime contacted Jake immediately after the battle with what sounded like joy in her musical voice. "Captain Morrison, your species has achieved something we thought impossible. That bioship had consumed 3 of our fleets, but your kinetic weapons destroyed it in less than 2 hours. The psychological impact on Nexus forces was profound. Many alien species had believed their energy-based technology represented the pinnacle of military science. The idea that primitive projectile weapons could succeed where advanced systems failed challenged their fundamental assumptions about warfare and progress. Dr. Helen Martinez worked with Nexus medical teams to treat wounded survivors from previous battles. The alien doctors were fascinated by human weapons technology and wanted to understand how such simple systems could be so effective. Some species began requesting training in kinetic weapon operation. Back on Earth, weapons factories worked around the clock to produce ammunition for the growing human fleet. The industrial capacity that had barely kept pace with peacetime needs was expanded rapidly to supply a galactic war. Old-fashioned bullet manufacturing became humanity's most important contribution to the Alliance. General Rick Palmer, who had opposed joining the war, now found himself coordinating the largest military expansion in human history. "We are building more ammunition in 1 month than we used in the previous century," he reported to the Earth Council. Every major nation is converting civilian factories to military production. The success at Kepler 442 also revealed new challenges. The Void was beginning to change their tactics in response to kinetic weapons. Instead of relying solely on adaptation, they started using swarm attacks designed to overwhelm human weapon systems through sheer numbers. The enemy might not be able to adapt to bullets, but they could still win through MAS's assault. Dr. Brooks continued studying captured void tissue samples with help from Nexus scientists. His research revealed that the creature's adaptation mechanisms were incredibly sophisticated but also had specific limitations. Energy-based attacks triggered immediate evolutionary responses, but kinetic damage was processed as environmental stress rather than combat threat. The implications were staggering. The Void had evolved to counter energy weapons because that was what every advanced species in the galaxy used. Their biological systems were blind to kinetic threats, because no civilized race had used projectile weapons for thousands of years. Humanity's technological backwardness had become their greatest military advantage. As reports of the victory spread throughout Nexus space, other species began requesting human military advisors and weapons technology. The alliance that had initially accepted Earth as a desperate junior partner now looked to humanity for leadership in the war against an enemy that had seemed invincible just months before. Following the stunning victory at Kepler 442, the Nexus Council formally requested that Earth share kinetic weapon technology with all member species. Colonel Susan Blake arrived at the main Alliance headquarters on Centauri Prime to oversee what would become the largest military integration project in galactic history. The challenges were immediate and complex. Each Nexus species had evolved differently, and their physiology created unique problems for weapon operation. The crystalline Valdorians could not operate conventional triggers because their hands were too rigid. The gaseous Etherian race existed as floating clouds of intelligent particles and needed completely different interface systems. Chief Engineer Paul Martinez worked 16-hour days designing species-specific weapon modifications. His team created trigger mechanisms that responded to crystalline vibrations for the Valdorians and thought-controlled systems for the telepathic Mentari race. Every solution required understanding alien biology and psychology in ways no human had attempted before. Dr. Nathan Brooks expanded his research with help from Dr. Helen Torres, who specialized in evolutionary biology. Their analysis of captured void specimens revealed the exact mechanism behind the creature's adaptation abilities. The void organisms contained clusters of specialized cells that analyzed energy patterns and modified the host genetics in real time. The adaptation organs function like biological computers. Dr. Torres explained to a mixed audience of human and alien scientists. They identify energy signatures, create countermeasures, and distribute the modifications throughout the organism within minutes. But kinetic attacks register as natural hazards and trigger defensive responses instead of adaptive ones. This discovery led to development of specialized anti-void ammunition. Sergeant First Class Tony Garcia worked with human manufacturers to create the Void Buster round, which combined kinetic impact with delayed fuse explosives and chemical compounds toxic to alien tissue. Unlike energy weapons, these rounds could not be adapted to or countered. The first large-scale test of integrated human Nexus forces came during the defense of Proxima Station. The critical supply depot served as the primary staging area for Alliance operations in the Outer Rim territories. Intelligence reports indicated a massive Void fleet was approaching with 3 of the largest bioships ever detected: Admiral Carter, commanded 60 ships in the defense force, including 40 Nexus vessels equipped with human kinetic systems. The integration had taken months of training as alien crews learned to operate projectile weapons alongside their traditional energy systems. Many commanders remained skeptical about the effectiveness of primitive human technology. Captain Jake Morrison led the advanced screening force in his upgraded ship New Horizon. His crew had worked closely with Nexus engineers to mount railguns and missile pods alongside the human weapon systems. The hybrid approach allowed them to use kinetic weapons for primary attacks while energy systems provided shields and sensors. The Void attack began with a coordinated assault by hundreds of smaller bioships that swarmed toward Proxima Station like angry insects. These creatures had adapted to energy weapons during previous battles, and their hulls showed the characteristic shimmer of evolved armor plating. But they had never encountered massed kinetic fire. Lieutenant Ben Carter coordinated the opening bombardment from his tactical station. All ships commence kinetic barrage on designated targets. Maintain continuous fire and do not allow the enemy time to analyze our weapon systems. The space around Proxima Station lit up with railgun rounds and missile trails as human weapons spoke with deadly authority. The results exceeded all expectations. Void creatures that had shrugged off the most powerful energy weapons in previous battles were torn apart by simple projectile impacts. Their adaptive systems had no response to kinetic attacks, and each hit caused permanent damage that could not be quickly repaired. Commander Zara Prime contacted Jake from her crystal ship, with excitement evident in her musical voice. Captain Morrison, the enemy is completely unprepared for this type of warfare. Our combined forces are achieving casualty ratios that seemed impossible just months ago. The 3 massive bioships arrived through dimensional portals and immediately demonstrated why the Void was so feared. Each creature was larger than most space stations, and their hulls pulsed with organic weapon systems. Previous encounters with similar organisms had resulted in total destruction of defending fleets, but these monsters had evolved to fight energy-based civilizations. When human kinetic weapons opened fire, the bioships had no effective defense. Railgun rounds punched through their adaptive armor, while missile strikes caused massive internal explosions. The creatures that had consumed entire star systems were helpless against bullets and chemical explosives. Dr. Brooks monitored the battle from a safe distance and recorded detailed data on Void adaptation attempts. The larger organisms are trying to modify their hull structure in response to kinetic impacts, he reported to Admiral Carter. But their biological systems cannot process physical damage as a weapon signature, so the modifications are ineffective. The battle lasted 8 hours and ended with complete destruction of the attacking Void fleet. Not a single bioship survived the engagement, and Alliance casualties were minimal compared to previous encounters. The victory demonstrated that human kinetic weapons were consistently effective, regardless of enemy size or adaptation level. Major Alex Turner began organizing the new Human Nexus integration corps, which would train mixed species units in combined arms tactics. These elite formations learned to use human kinetic systems for primary attacks, while alien technology provided mobility, communication, and sensor capabilities. The combination proved devastatingly effective. The success at Proxima Station created political complications within the Nexus Alliance. Some species began questioning their reliance on energy weapons and wanted to abandon technologies they had developed over thousands of years. Others resented human influence and argued that primitive weapons were not suitable for civilized warfare. Colonel Blake found herself mediating disputes between species that had fundamentally different views of military technology. The Nexus has achieved incredible advances in energy manipulation and faster than light travel, she explained to the Alliance Council. Human kinetic weapons complement these technologies rather than replace them. The integration process revealed cultural differences that went beyond simple technology. Human military doctrine emphasized adaptability and aggressive action, while many Nexus species preferred careful planning and overwhelming technological superiority. Finding common ground required patience and mutual respect from both sides, Chief Medical Officer Martinez treated wounded Alliance personnel and noticed that human soldiers recovered faster from combat stress than their alien counterparts. "We have been fighting wars with projectile weapons for thousands of years," he explained to curious Nexus medical staff. "The psychological impact of kinetic combat is familiar to us in ways it cannot be for energy weapon specialists." As news of the victory spread, the Void began changing their strategy once again. Intelligence reports indicated they were developing new tactics focused on overwhelming human weapon systems through massive numerical superiority. The enemy could not adapt to bullets, but they could still potentially win through sheer mass assault. Dr. Torres continued her research into void biology and made a disturbing discovery. The adaptation organs found in all void creatures showed signs of artificial modification rather than natural evolution. Someone had deliberately engineered these organisms to counter energy-based civilizations, and the implications were terrifying. "The Void may not be a natural species at all," she reported to the Combined Research Council. "The genetic modifications are too precise and specialized to have evolved naturally. We may be fighting a weapon created by some unknown predecessor race, specifically designed to destroy advanced technological societies." This revelation changed everything about how the Alliance viewed the war. If the Void was an engineered weapon rather than a natural species, then their creators might still exist somewhere in the galaxy. The war against the Void might be only the beginning of humanity's role as defenders of galactic civilization. 1 year after the first successful deployment of kinetic weapons, the war had fundamentally changed character. The Nexus Human Alliance had reclaimed 17 star systems and pushed the Void back for the first time since the conflict began. But the enemy was learning new tactics that did not rely on biological adaptation to survive. Human weapons. Major Alex Turner led the newly formed Human Nexus integration course through the ruins of a void processing facility on the planet Kepler 438b. His mixed unit included human marines equipped with kinetic weapons working alongside Valdorian crystal warriors and Etherian scout clouds. The combination of human firepower and alien mobility proved highly effective in ground combat. The facility had been used by the Void to convert captured organic matter into new bioship components. Massive organic vats filled with bubbling fluid had produced the creatures that terrorized the galaxy, but now they lay silent and empty. Human chemical explosives had destroyed the biological machinery in ways that energy weapons never could. "Sergeant Williams, take your squad and secure the North Corridor," Turner ordered as his unit advanced through the twisted organic architecture. The Void builders had grown their structures rather than constructing them, and the walls pulsed with veins that still carried nutrients to dying tissue. It was like fighting inside the body of some massive creature. Dr. Nathan Brooks worked in a temporary laboratory established in the ruins, studying tissue samples from the destroyed facility. His analysis continued to reveal disturbing evidence that the Void was not a natural species. The genetic modifications were too precise, and the adaptation organs too specialized to have evolved without intelligent design. These creatures were engineered as the perfect weapon against energy-based civilizations, he reported to Dr. Helen Torres via secure communication link. Their creators understood exactly how advanced species would fight and designed the Void to counter every possible energy weapon system. But they never considered kinetic attacks because no civilized race had used projectile weapons for millennia. The discovery had profound implications for understanding the galactic situation. Somewhere in the vast expanse of space and unknown, intelligence had created the Void specifically to destroy technological civilizations. The war that humanity had stumbled into was actually the latest phase of an ancient conflict between order and design. Chaos. Captain Jake Morrison commanded Operation Deep Strike, a joint mission to locate the source of Void reproduction in their home territory. His task force of 30 ships included the most advanced vessels from both human and Nexus fleets, equipped with integrated weapon systems that combined kinetic and energy technologies. The journey into Void space revealed the true scope of the enemy infrastructure. Massive bioship factories orbited dead stars, consuming the stellar material to build new organisms. These living constructs were larger than planets and produced thousands of void creatures every day. The sight was both magnificent and terrifying. "Captain, we are detecting over 50 factory organisms in this system alone," reported Lieutenant Sarah Brooks from her sensor station. "Each one appears capable of producing bioships at an incredible rate. If we can destroy these facilities, we might cripple their ability to replace losses." Jake studied the tactical display showing the enormous organic structures. They pulsed with the same sickly light as smaller void creatures, but their size made them seem almost like diseased planets. Traditional energy weapons would be useless against targets so large, but human kinetic systems might be able to inflict critical damage. The attack began with concentrated railgun bombardment from the entire task force. Projectiles traveling at near light speed punched deep into the factory organisms, causing massive internal explosions. Unlike smaller void creatures, these giants could not dodge or maneuver, so they absorbed the full impact of human weapons. Commander Zeraprime coordinated sensor sweeps to identify critical systems within each factory organism. The bioship production appears to center around massive organic cores that regulate the entire facility, she reported in her musical voice. "If we can destroy these command centers, the factories should collapse." The battle revealed another disturbing truth about the void. Intelligence analysis of the factory behavior patterns showed that the creatures were deliberately avoiding Earth and human colonies while focusing their attacks on Nexus worlds. Dr. Torres theorized that their programming targeted specific technological signatures associated with energy-based civilizations. "The Void may not even recognize humanity as a threat worth attacking," she explained to the combined command staff. "Their creators programmed them to seek out and destroy species that match certain technological profiles. Our primitive kinetic weapons make us invisible to their primary targeting systems." As the task force destroyed more factory organisms, intelligence teams discovered evidence of the Void's true origins. Deep within the organic command centers, they found crystalline storage devices containing genetic templates and construction protocols. The data revealed that the Void had been created by a species called the Architects, who had vanished millions of years ago. The Architects had apparently fought a war against an alliance of energy weapon-using species and created the Void as their ultimate revenge. When their civilization faced defeat, they released the bioweapons into space with programming to seek out and destroy any species that achieved advanced energy manipulation technology. Jake realized that humanity had stumbled into an ancient conflict between two different approaches to galactic civilization. The Architects represented genetic manipulation and biological warfare, while their enemies had pursued energy-based technology and space exploration. The Void was designed to ensure that only one philosophy could survive. Colonel Susan Blake received reports from the Deep Strike mission while coordinating defense preparations on Earth. Intelligence indicated that the Void was massing for a final desperate assault on the Nexus core worlds. Billions of organisms were converging on the galactic center, suggesting that the enemy recognized the existential threat posed by human weapons. The political situation within the Nexus Alliance grew more complex as some species proposed using humanity as a permanent warrior class, while others wanted to share advanced technology to elevate human capabilities. Blake argued for maintaining independence while continuing cooperation. Recognizing that human effectiveness came from their different approach to warfare, General Rick Palmer coordinated the largest military mobilization in human history as Earth prepared for the final confrontation. Every spaceship capable of mounting weapons was pressed into service, and ammunition factories worked around the clock. The entire human race was becoming a military force dedicated to galactic defense. Dr. Brooks made one final discovery that changed everything about the strategic situation. Analysis of Architect data revealed that the Void had been programmed with a fail-safe mechanism. If their creators ever returned, the bioweapons would shut down automatically. But the Architects were extinct and had been for millions of years. "There is one possibility," he reported to Admiral Carter during an emergency briefing. "The Void programming might recognize sufficiently advanced genetic manipulation as a sign that the architects had returned. If we can decode their biotechnology and use it against the Void, we might be able to trigger the shutdown sequence." The race was on to understand architect biotechnology before the final Void assault reached the Nexus core worlds. Humanity had proven that primitive weapons could defeat advanced enemies, but now they needed to master the most sophisticated biological engineering ever developed. The secret weapon that changed the war was about to evolve one final time. The final confrontation began when every remaining Void organism in the galaxy converged on Nexus Prime, the capital system of the Galactic Alliance. Over 10,000 bioships of various sizes emerged from dimensional portals in a desperate attempt to destroy the coalition before human weapons could eliminate the Void species entirely. Admiral Lisa Carter commanded the largest combined fleet in galactic history from her flagship, the Earth vessel Titan. 200 human ships and 800 Nexus vessels formed a defensive wall around the 3 inhabited worlds of the Nexus Prime system. Every ship carried integrated, kinetic energy weapon systems that had proven devastatingly effective against Void organisms. The battle began with the largest space engagement anyone had ever witnessed. Void bioships ranging from fighter-sized parasites to mountain-sized dreadnoughts attacked in coordinated waves, while Alliance forces responded with concentrated firepower. The space around Nexus Prime became a glowing battlefield visible from the planet's surface. Captain Jake Morrison led Strike Group Alpha in a direct assault on the Void Command organism, a massive bioconstruct that coordinated the entire enemy fleet. His ship New Horizon had been upgraded with the most